Coming up on today's news, there's been even more WWE releases, with more potentially on the horizon, more names potentially being called up soon, and the review of last night's episode of SmackDown. Hit that subscribe button for daily wrestling news videos.
Support WrestleTalk!
Last night, WWE continued their 2021 trend of releasing talent, breaking their previous record and managing 2 days of mass releases in 1 month. New high score, WWE, well done. Very proud. We covered the releases as they were happening last night, but since then, even more releases have come in. At the time of Ollie's video last night, the releases that were confirmed were Aria Daivari, Tony Nese, Chase Parker and Matt Martell, aka Everrise, August Gray, Tyler Breeze, Fandango, and the Raw writer that made the news headlines this week, Kenise Mobley. The releases then continued, as Samir and Sunil Singh, Arturo Ruas, Kurt Stallion, Marina Shafir, Tino Sabatelli, and Killian Dane were all also confirmed to be released from the company. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful originally reported that WWE President Nick Khan was one of the lead people behind these releases, with there being a meeting held earlier in the day within WWE. However, this was then clarified later by Sapp, saying that WWE sources had reached out to him to confirm that Khan was not in fact one of the driving forces behind these decisions. But the releases might not be done just yet, as a report on Fightful Select says that there were other releases planned that have not happened yet. As of publication, multiple names that we've heard were set to be released have not yet. However, there were several names that ended up getting released that we hadn't heard about prior, and at times this year, wrestlers have been saved from the chopping block. The report also states that a number of the 205 Live talent that were released were on higher paying contracts than the company had been giving out to new performers on the brand as of late. Several of the 205 Live wrestlers have varying lengths of their no-compete clauses. Former Cruiserweight champion Tony Nese is under a 90-day no-compete clause, which is typically in line with that of his main roster counterparts, while August Gray is under a 30-day no-compete clause. The reason for the 205 Live releases has seemingly also been revealed, as Dave Meltzer mentioned on Wrestling Observer Radio that they gutted the 205 Live guys that have been around for a while. They were mostly older guys. I know that there's a movement to bring in younger and bigger guys. That's the big thing right now. 26 and under, over 220. Tyler Breeze posted a heartwarming appreciation post of his close friend Xavier Woods on Instagram, while Killian Dane posted about a new determination and drive. Meanwhile, August Gray had a sense of humor about the whole thing, saying that his scheduled match that was taking place on 205 Live that night had turned into a loser leaves town match. That's actually very funny. It's an incredibly sad situation to see so many people lose their jobs, but as myself, Luke, and Ollie discussed on the WrestleTalk podcast reactions yesterday evening, this feels like it was inevitable. WWE's strategy of signing too much talent, hoarding them so they don't sign elsewhere, had to expire at some point. And now, these last few months seem to be when the bubble is finally bursting. 205 Live now has a total of 5 people on its roster. 5. And one of them is Brian Kendrick, who's a producer for SmackDown. Surely that's got to mean the show's time is up. And speaking of time, TikTok and all that, after Karrion Kross made his very sad debut on Main Event this week, it's been reported by Mike Johnson of PW Insider that Kross once again was backstage at SmackDown and wrestled a dark match against Slapjack of all people. Scarlett also had a dark match against fellow NXT talent Shotzi Blackheart. With reports of more NXT call-ups coming soon, all of these, as well as Bronson Reed, who wrestled on Main Event this week as well, have got to be favorites to be high on that list. And now it's time for a review of last night's episode of SmackDown in about 5 minutes. Thank you for being an awesome pledge hammer on Patreon, Zarjeth. You can get your own shout out by visiting us at patreon.com/WrestleTalk. The show opened up with Jimmy Uso and Roman Reigns backstage, with Jimmy telling Roman that Jay once again was a no-show this week, but that he shouldn't worry because he can do whatever Jay does. Roman scoffs and repeats that he wants to be the right-hand man? Then he should prove it. I love that Roman is building tension between Jimmy and Jay while Jay isn't even around, and that Roman still doesn't trust Jimmy fully. After this came a mixed tag team match of Bianca Belair and Cesaro versus Bayley and Rollins. Why did we have this match? These feuds must continue. I guess. SmackDown, the land of rematches. But first, of course, Bianca Belair had to cut a promo about bullies because WWE is Groundhog Day. Seth Rollins interrupts and was actually quite funny with his promo, saying that it was time to celebrate as both of them overcame adversity at Hell in a Cell, which brought out Bayley, and they got into a brawl, which brought out Cesaro, and then Bayley said that all of this was Cesaro's fault? What is? It was a pretty long segment to get to a match we already knew was coming. The match itself, though, was pretty good and lasted quite a while. These are 4 of SmackDown's top stars, and it felt like it, so that was nice. What was less nice was the finish, because after some shenanigans involving Cesaro and Rollins brawling and knocking into Belair, Bayley manages to hit her finisher and pin Bianca, which sort of renders the whole entire Hell in a Cell match pointless. This feud must continue, I guess. Also a minor criticism, if you're gonna have a Hell in a Cell match, maybe sell the effects of it on the next show. Just a little wrapping or some tape, or I don't know, selling an injury that you picked up in the match. Anywho, Jimmy Uso backstage is pacing outside Roman's locker room, and he speaks to Heyman saying he doesn't know what Roman wants him to do. Heyman makes a match for him and says he needs to win. And that match is against Dolph Ziggler? But why? After this came the coronation of Shinsuke Nakamura as the new king on SmackDown. It was really bad. I didn't like any of this. Baron Corbin, he's back to being a Baron now, cuts a promo you can barely hear because Shinsuke's music was playing, but nearly on the verge of tears, he says, "What's the point?" and walks away. He's the babyface, and you can't tell me otherwise. Rollins goes backstage with Pierce and Deville saying he wants to be Roman's next challenger, and you know what? I think that'd be quite fun. Big E had a Money in the Bank qualifying match next against Apollo Crews, because WWE is the most repetitive show I've ever seen in my life. Sean Rossap on Twitter confirmed that this was the 14th match these two have had together this year, with this being the 7th one-on-one match together. Why did you put these two together? You could have anyone. A Money in the Bank qualifier automatically has stakes built into it. You don't need it to be between people that are feuding. In fact, it's better when it's not. And especially when it's people that have been feuding since Big E won the title, which was in December, lest we forget. In this match, Commander Aziz gets involved, but somehow doesn't get DQ'd and instead gets ejected, and then Big E hits the big ending and wins. So not only have you put these two in a singles match, again, you then either would have had Big E getting pinned or your Intercontinental Champion getting pinned. What a terrible booking choice. At least Big E won. Sami Zayn backstage celebrates his win over Kevin Owens before being told that the two of them will be having another match next week as a Money in the Bank qualifier, which later in the show is confirmed to be a last man standing match. What is happening on this show? Why these two together? Again, why a last man standing match? It's already a Money in the Bank qualifier. I think I'm losing my mind. And then, Sonya Deville comes out to reveal the first competitor in the women's Money in the Bank match, because in the women's one, you just get put in. Christ on a bike, this company. She reveals it to be Carmella, who, lest we forget, lost last week to Liv Morgan, before Morgan comes out and says exactly that, and she's right. So Deville makes another match between Carmella and Morgan, but it's not a qualifier because Carmella's already in the match. So it's a qualifier, but only for Morgan, who's already beaten Carmella last week. Makes perfect sense. Morgan won after a few minutes. Cool. Jimmy Uso then faced Dolph Ziggler to prove he's the right-hand man, and the two had a much better match than they had any right to. Ziggler hit a brutal-looking zigzag onto the corner of the ring steps, and the two went back and forth for a while after, before Jimmy won with a super kick. Cool. Backstage, Jimmy is hyped that he won with Roman, but Roman enters for his State of the Universal Championship address, and Heyman keeps Jimmy in the back. In the ring, Heyman says that there's no one left for Roman to fight. They've beaten everyone, apart from Rollins, who said he wanted to fight earlier in the night. And Big E. Before Roman can say anything else though, Edge returns for the first time since WrestleMania and beats up Roman. Jimmy comes out to try and stop Edge, which prevents Roman from being concertoed, but Edge spears him through the barricade. Edge then screams at the camera, "Where you at, Roman? You want me? I'm right here." He's on the ramp right now, Edge. You just turn to your right a little bit and you'll see him. He's over there. Also, he doesn't want you. That was the point of them saying that there's no one left. It's a bit weird. Look, I'm all for Edge coming back and breaking up this monotony that we've been in since WrestleMania, but he's coming back to fight Roman, which is something we've already seen, and he lost at WrestleMania and is now going for that title again. So that was the show. Let me know what you thought in the comments below, and by voting on our poll on a poll match on our community tab, where 73% of you voted for Edge is an iconoclast. Who else had to Google what that meant? Not me, that's for sure. I didn't. This was a weird show, top to bottom, and so much of it made me roll my eyes, didn't make sense, or was a feud we've seen for months now. This SmackDown gets a 2 out of 5 SmackDowner.
That the best thing for everyone in the group, and especially mine and Brooke's relationship, is if you take that card. Tom, take it right now. Please take it. Please take it, Tom. Tom, take it. Yes.
Delicious.
Sullivan Brown are going to feel some actual pain.